Big day. Big day. Where's Sammy? What'd you do to him? He got upset with you in a fight? What is this? I'll yell at him. Okay, everybody say. Big day. It's big day. Big day, everybody say. So the fire goes out. What do you do if the fire goes out? The fire goes out and, Bez Hashem. When? When did the fire go out? The truth is, actually, one moment before I begin, I just want to mention one thing. One thing that I'm not sure about, that if the Olam has some type of a raya to this, they should tell me. I asked Rabbi Yitzchak, he didn't have a raya, so probably there is no raya if he doesn't have one. But the Maisa, it says that the Ran, we know the sheet of the Ran, which we Lamaisa were make on the sheet of Ran. That the Ran holds if the food was on the fire as of when Shabbos came in. So we saw that the sheet of the Ran is that you don't need the T'nai Chazara, which means that as long as, we're going to talk about all these cases today, like the fire went out on Shabbos. The electricity went out on Shabbos, the fire went out on Shabbos, all these cases, the type of the cases that we have over here. And in these cases where the fire went out, the electricity went out on Shabbos. So the Maisa, Nachaltz, you don't have to work so hard, because even though the fire went out, the Maisa, you have the Ran. Okay, if the food is mamish cold, then whatever, so you might have issues of real bishul, if it's a liquidy food or something like that. But Derek Klau, you have to always keep in mind that you can have the Ran once the fire went off, and it was on when Shabbos started. You have the Ran. What's the vort of the Ran? It looks like a hem. What's the vort? Anybody know what the vort of the Ran is? It looks like a hemshich of the bishul process. It doesn't look like you're doing something new. It's not the yadai. It's not the italachs or whatever. Okay, but it doesn't look like you're starting up something new because it was on the fire as of when Shabbos came in. No, so the Shabbos, what does it mean as of when Shabbos came in? When does Shabbos start? This halacha. If the fire was on as it went, and the very case, a lot of times most of the things go wrong when Taka Benishmashis, right? That's another. So halavai, if you have a guy, no, so then get the guy to do everything. But let's say the fire went out, the electricity went out on Benishmashis, right? Or let's say the fire went out, all the various cases that we're going to talk about today, when does it start? When do you have the Ran that once it was on the fire, as of when Shabbos came in, that we're saying everything's okay? So does anybody know? Does anybody know? So what do you know? You know? What did Rav say? Even a minute, right? So Misvara, you would say like this. Misvara, you would say that Maisa, when it comes to trying to figure out the Gedarim and the rules of Hilchas Shabbos, of Ben Hashmoshes, of Migudis Katzai. We know there's a lot of rules that are dependent upon Shabbos beginning, and we're always trying to figure out what's called Shabbos begins. So for example, the Gabi Muksa, the klal is that we say Migudis Katzai, when something was Muksa on Ben Hashmoshes, so then it's Muksa the whole entire Shabbos. That's the rule. What does it mean it was Muksa on Ben Hashmoshes? So let's say I have on a table, I have something which is very chashiv, let's say a very chashiv, it's got a, somebody asked me the other day, it sounds like a funny case, but he had not a lawnmower, what's the thing called that you cut down the trees with, but not like a fancy one, like an electric hedge clipper. No, it's called. What's it called? No, it's not like some axe murderer. It was like they cut trees and stuff. What are you talking? Like leaves and branches. What are you weird Chassidish things? No? Kids, what? Who? A strimmer? I think that's what the Chassidim wear. Isn't that a strimmer? I don't know. The kids are. I don't know. The kids are. It's a chainsaw. Rabbi Slansky's saying. Okay, why am I not yelling at him? But okay, so it's a chainsaw. So you had a chainsaw on the table. How exactly did you leave a chainsaw on a table on an Erev Shabbos? That's what he did. It was on the kitchen table. He left a chainsaw. I know it's, what are you laughing at? That's what happened. He left a chainsaw on the table. So the table became a buses. So he's asking me, well, he had on the table like one bencher. So he wanted to know, there was like one of these benches, which was like, it was like had a lot of dirt on it and everything, one of those matzavim. And the chainsaw, which is very expensive. It's a brand new chainsaw. I know it sounds weird, but that was the case. So now the look is migudis katsai ben hashmashes. It became a bustis. If I ben hashmash, let's say that chainsaw was only on the table for 1 of the minutes or 10 of the minutes of ben hashmashes. But there was some time that it wasn't on the table. So now, when does it get that din of huksa, that once it was, the table became muksa ben hashmashes, it's muksa the whole entire Shabbos? The halacha is that if it was there when Shabbos came in. So if you know for sure it was there when Shabbos came in, then migudis katzai ben hashmashes, then the table becomes a basis the whole entire Shabbos. Okay, but what if for 1 second it wasn't on the table during Ben Ishmashis? So how do you know? Maybe that's the 1 second taka. Ben Ishmashis is a suffix. Maybe that's the exact second when Shabbos comes in. How do you know? So the Mishabura taka is Mekel. Mishabura holds that it's got to be on the Kol Ben Ishmashis. In order to get the rules of Muksa, it has to be Kol Ben Ishmashis. So the Shaila is the who I did over here. Over here, we're trying to figure out when the food was on the fire as of when Shabbos came in. So now, when the Shabbos come in? Okay. Does anybody know the answer? The answer is sometime from the beginning of Ben Ishmashis till the end of Ben Ishmashis. That's when Shabbos comes in. So let's say Taka, now we can go the other direction. Let's say there was 1 sec. Here it's a little bit more difficult, right? What happens here? Let's say the cholent, the fire went off 7 minutes into Ben Ishmashis. 7 minutes after Shkia, the fire went off. So I'll tell you, I don't know. Maybe there's a tzad to say that Shabbos came in the first 3 minutes. Right? Here it's the other direction. Here we'll say maybe Shabbos did come in those 3 minutes, okay? And then Shabbos maybe did come in, so then maybe Taka was on the second Shabbos started. So they're telling me, no, but it's a suffix. So I don't know, maybe it's a suffix Rabbanim. Maybe the Shaila we're dealing with is a Shaila Rabbanim. Maybe it's a suffix Rabbanim the Kula. So the Svar Pshutim, he's saying that that's where Falk said, that as long as the pot was on the fire, which is very negaya, because we're going to see soon, that even when the electricity goes out, but if the hot plate is still hot, so then, that also considered, that also might have a din of a yad, so that might still be called hot, and that might still be called an aish. So I'm not 100% sure about this, right? I know that Falk said in my sukkah, if I'm not mistaken, right? But I know that he said that. It could be it's even the pashtus, but maybe we'll come back to it. Maybe we'll come back to it. Just think about it, okay? That's one thing that I want you to think about. Another thing that I want you to think about is not unrelated to what we're going to talk about today. We know that if you put something on the karka, so then what's the halacha once you put something on the karka? No, that's it, right? Or let's say it's something that was on the karka from before Shabbos, but something on the karka, that's it. Okay, sorry. Okay, the karka, mama stick a karka. It's on the karka. No, it's karka, whatever karka is. There's a case of karka that answers that case. Now, in that case, Rabbi say, what's the din? We declared what's the din of a countertop. And the oilam the other day, remember we declared the shiloh, what's the din of a table? What did you guys say, Misfar? What's the din of a table? What is that? Is a table like a meat of a safsel? When you take something, you put it on the table. So first of all, it depends which table, in my opinion. You take it to a living room table, it's pretty karkadik, right? A living room table, you take it to the table, and you're coming to eat it now, That's what I would think, right? A kitchen table, when it's right near it, and sometimes you use it as a meat of a safsel. So I could have heard that would be like a meat of a safsel. That's what I would have heard. I would have been mechalik between a living room table and a kitchen table. It's interesting. I didn't see anybody that said that, but I looked into the shiloh. I looked into it, and I found that Rav Nevinsal has a Mishnah Berurah, and in the Mishnah Berurah it's called B'yitzchak Yikare. And over there, he mamish declares what's the din of a table. He says a table that's karka. Now we don't know. We don't know if he was looking at the table in his house. Right? We don't know. We don't know if he was talking about the living room table. We don't know. He just says a table, das is karka. And they asked the Shiloh to the Igris Moshe in Beis Samach Tes, and Rav Moshe says, das is meat of a safsel. But we don't know. Was Rav Moshe talking about a kitchen table? He said, das is a meat of a safsel. A table is a meat of a safsel. And the Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa in Aleph Ha'ara Samachei, he says, das is a meat of a safsel. And the Shvitz Yitzchak in the 155th page, he says, "Das is from Shem Rav Yashiv. Das is a meat of a safsel." What do you say? Unbelievable. Rav Moshe holds that the part of the blech, which is yad saled, which is not yad saled as well. He said whatever. That's called a karka. That's called karka. But the table, das is mamish. Das a meat of a safsel. You figure that one out, no? What's the shot? So it's hard for me to believe he's talking about a living room table. Right? It's hard to believe anything. I don't know. So it's hard to understand. I'd be the first to admit that's very difficult. That's very difficult. And listen to this. What's the din? Somebody who asked me, Jaime, you asked me this about an unlit stove. Who asked me this? Who asked me this? Somebody asked me this. That an unlit. What's the din if you take food and you put it on an unlit stove? Very, very common case, right? You have a hot plate. Very common. It's a normal case, right? You have a hot plate, you have a crock pot, you take it out and you're looking for a place to put it. You don't want to put it on the countertop because it'll crack it. I don't know. And you put it on the stovetop. It's a very normal case. An unlit stovetop. What's the din of an unlit stovetop? What would you say, Misfar? Punkt, I was looking in the Shvitz Yitzchak over there on the 155th page for this Shiloh, and I saw he had that Shiloh. So on that Shiloh, he says, that's meat of a safsel. So that's meat of a safsel. That I hear. That I hear that because that gets The fire's off, and that's what you do. You leave it off. Sometimes you're going to turn the fire back on. It's a place that I think here is the meat of Safsel. What do you say? Excuse me, what? That a countertop is going to be. You mean we lost my raya now? Yeah, because now right. I brought a raya that a countertop is going to be a din of a karka. Because if Moshe said it by the edge of a stovetop, then certainly Kavachaymer is going to say it by countertop. So Bashar says, now that we don't understand Moshe, because Moshe by table tells us this is mamish shmita of Safsel. Okay, so then maybe I don't know, maybe a countertop is also, and it must be something miyuchad about the edge of a blech, which we don't understand. So he's right. Don't have a right. Right now I was going to say that. It's not right. You beat me to it. Chaim, what? I don't know. The whole thing because nobody will leave it on a table. That's a fancy table. I don't know. Akapan, those are two things. What about this? One last shaila before I go into the good stuff. I mean, this is also good stuff, right? But the really good stuff, Rabbi Kiva Eger. Nothing better than Rabbi Kiva Eger. Rabbi Kiva Eger. I'm excited. Today's Rabbi Kiva Eger day. I'm so excited. But what if you take the cholent and you take some of the cholent and you put it onto a plate? You hear this? You take some of the cholent and you put it onto a plate. And now you want to take some of that plate and you want to put it back into a pot, and not the pinam and mechel shai, whatever. You want to take that plate and put it straight onto the. Okay, it's totally in pinam and mechel, but we're making pinam and mechel. So you want to take something from a cholent and put it onto a plate, and now there's leftover on the plate, and you want to put it back into the pot. And let's say it's oida biyadai. Okay. So what's it then? Is a plate called karka? Who says plate is called karka? Who says plate's called karka? Right, plate is karka. So you're all mekavin to Rav Nissen Karelitz. He says in Beis Chav Zayin, he says a plate is karka. He says plate's karka. Maisa, I had written down. I don't know why I asked this child to Rav Yashav. I can't remember what was my thought, because everybody here says it's mamish the most pashut thing in the world, right? It's mamish pashut. It's good. The en chassid gadol misayis, right? No, it's nothing even to say. So what could have even been the shaila? So I asked the shaila to Rav Yashav, and I had written down like this. I don't remember this, and you should know I didn't say this last time. I found these in notes that I found over Ben Azman. I didn't even say this last time. I asked this child to Rav Yashiv, and Rav Yashiv said that a plate is pashit, no shaila in the world. It's called oida b'yadai, and it doesn't have a din of a karka b'chlal. So I don't know what I asked him. I asked the plate, and it writes there pashit, no shaila. Mamish fakir from Rav Nissen. Rav Nissen is pashit, no shaila, it's karka. Yeah, what could be the Rav Yashiv? What could be my question? That should bother us also. What could be what? I did say it. Oh, okay, because now I had it written down. I said it from somebody else. And Rav Yashiv said, which way? I didn't bring Rav Yashiv? Okay, I didn't bring Rav Yashiv. Okay, I didn't bring Rav Yashiv. So what could be my shayla? I think the shayla is that maybe Taka, once something's in a pot, in a plate, the chazal didn't go to a karka. That's it. I don't know. Okay, these are all things I want them to think about. I didn't, what? Yeah, that's clearly the case. I'm saying, but what's the svar of Rav Yashiv? What? Why Mesharim? You say take what you need, you put back here, and then we're in the neighborhood. So, okay, we'll come back to it. Everybody's like, let's get to Rabbi Kiva Eger. I can't hold back anymore, right? Everybody's like, so we have this shaila that comes out. We have a shaila like this, right? Halach l'maisa, Rabbi Spira, I'm going to get back to. On those cases, later I'll talk again. What did we just mention? We have a lot of cases here, right? One case was, what's the din of a table? Lenia's daiti, I would have been mechalik between a living room table and a kitchen table. That's what I would have said. A living room table would be karka. That's what I would have said. A plate, I think the pashtus is like Rav Nissen. The pashtus is that a plate is karka, but maybe Rav Yashiv held that it didn't touch a different surface. So chazal weren't geyser unless it goes to a different surface. Maybe that's what Rav Yashiv meant. I don't know. You can't machen. What's it in pashtus l'gabe benish mashis? Pashtus, it's something that'll be a suffix that will be mitzaref when we have other sfeikis. What's the din of the ran? Can we use the ran if it was on? If the fire went out in the middle of Ben Hashmashis? It's certainly going to be a makom to be mekel. Where we're going to use it, it'll be mekel. What do you say? He brings over Yashiv. Well, the plate is in your hand. Yashiv's mekel. Some of the koyves based are in Yisrael. They asked me. Who are they? I don't know. Okay. So, but the koyves based shraga. Right? In the Lichtige Shraga, it says Taka that Rabbi Yashiv is mekel on this, and okay, but we'll see. Everybody says it's not the last time you're seeing me, but I want to get to Rabbi Kiva Eger because I love Rabbi Kiva Eger. So the fire goes out, Okay, now, in order to enjoy the Shiloh more, let's assume the fire went out before Shabbos. Because once you guys have the Ran in your brains, you're not going to be able to appreciate the Shiloh B'chlal, because even I can't, right? Once I know in the back of my mind that the fire is, so either the case that we're talking about is it went out Ben Hashmashis and we're not sure how to apply the Ran, right? Or the case is that it went out before Shabbos, or the case will be that I never plugged it in, or the case will be that my Shabbos clock made it go off. But let's make the case before Shabbos. Again, that it's the same lumdus on Shabbos also. Just on Shabbos, we're always going to have the Ran, so therefore, we're not going to really have to schwitz so hard. It's not, Rabbi said, remember, I guess, for the rest of your life, somebody comes to you on Shabbos, and they tell you, the fire went out. The first question you ask them is, when did the fire go out? They tell you, the fire went out a few minutes ago. That's why I came to you now. No, it's after Ben Hashmashis. It's a fire went out a few minutes ago. So then if the fire went out a few minutes ago, we know it's hot still. So we don't have to worry it's not cooked. We know it's on Shabbos. Rest assured, you can be saying on the Ran. The Ran, no matter what, even though all the svaras we're going to say today are just going to enhance it and make you feel less guilty. But even if you don't have Biyada, even though you don't have Daitalach, but you have the Ran, so just remember, whatever Shalom we're about to talk about now, remember for the rest of your life that 90% of the time that you get the Shiloh, it's not Negea, right? Is that crystal clear? Because that's extremely important. If that's 90% of the cases, so then that's extremely important. Is that crystal clear? Chosin, is that clear or not clear? If it's not clear, then you have to say it's clear. Does everybody say, Vos? This fight him after on. You're causing intertribal trouble. It's like a racial comment. Why should, there are no Svarim here today. I see that Chacham Victor is over there. I don't know. Why shouldn't the Svardim be able to be Mekel on the Rad with the Evid? Okay, it's a good child and I have to look it up. He's saying we have another case of maybe why we have to appreciate Rabbi Kiva Eger and what we're going to discuss today. Because he says, what about Achenu Bnei Svardim? Right? What about Chacham Victor? What about Rabbi Elbaz? Right? What about all these people? Right? So we have to see. Now, by say, so Lamaisa, it's Azay. It's Azay. So what would you say, Misfara? The fire goes out. What would you say, Misfara? Now, I let you talk to yesterday. Now we'll try to say it to get clear. What did the Paiskim say about this? What would you say, Misfara? What would you say, Misfara? When the fire goes out, so is that called? Let's go first, assuming it's not called Oida B'Yadai. Let's assume it's not Oida B'Yadai, because you don't even have the Svar we spoke about the other day, that I put it in a holding ground in order to, this isn't the holding ground. So Mali, if I take it off and put it down, Mali, if I take the fire away from the pot. So it's not Oida B'Yadai. We'll see maybe a Chiddush, but it's not the pashtus Oida B'Yadai. So what's our only chance over here? Maybe it's Daita Lachser. Right? Maybe this is called that I talk about Daita Lachser, right? And then you can hear, no, it's probably not called Karka, right? It's not the Karka. It's not on the Karka over here because this is just like a stovetop. That's why I started with the Shaila. A stovetop that's off. No, so it's not like I put it on the Karka over here. So if I can apply that this is Oida B'Yadai and this is like an Amita B'Savsel, so Oida B'Yadai, Amita B'Savsel, so I could be makel even if it happened before Shabbos. Is that clear? That's what we're trying to accomplish over here. So now we want to know, is this called, not the B'Yadai, is this called the Daita Lachser? Is this called the Daita Lachser? It's a Daita Lachser and it's not called on the Karka. It's Daita Lachser and it's a Amita B'Savsel type of a scenario. It's not a Karka B'Kitzer. So is this called Daita Lachser? So Yesh Lachkar, what do I need when it comes to this Tanai on Shabbos of Daita Lachser? Do I need positive das to return it, like we cleared yesterday? Or do I need, no, you don't need a positive das to return it to the fire, but you just need not to stare. Don't mess up. You just need not to have a das removal, a das siluk. All these words are important to hear because the place can use all different ones. But if you have a das removal, then it's a problem. Right? What's the stomach? Is the stomach that everything remains? And is it the problem when I have a das to remove? That's the problem. But if I don't have a das to remove, so then that's okay. Or no. It's not enough to be parav. In life, Rabbi said, it's not enough to be parav. You have to be proactive. You have to be das lachzer. You have to be fleishiks. You have to have das to be machzer the pot to the fire. Okay? So what I would say misvar, again, I'm not saying, we'll see in a moment. It doesn't matter what I would say misvara. But what I would say misvara is the Lashon says daita lachzir. You ask a normal person, you ask somebody who doesn't know the sugya or whatever, you ask him, what do you need on Friday night? So he says, das not to mess up. He says, no, you have to have das positive to put the cholent back. Right? That's a lashon title. It's true that the diak is in mukrachas, Rabbi Sher, because it's coming off okay. But that's the pashtus. In life, that's the pashtus, right? In life, when we're dealing with talesim, which all the achrayim of here are telling through the sugya of talis and tefillin to our sugya. We know that a person's sitting there with talis and tefillin, and all of a sudden his talis goes over there, and the tefillin go and start going over there, and he's got yesh makom on his rosh for 14 pairs of tefillin because he got a tefillin, and it's all the way over here somewhere, right? So during davening, the Mishnah Berurah says a chiddush that his das the whole time during davening is to always be in its place. So that's considered constantly das to put back. But a lot of times the person learns after davening, especially in these days in Corona, he learns after davening with his talis and tefillin, and it makes him feel halig. And he's talking more halig. He's wearing his talis and tefillin, and all of a sudden the tefillin is over there, His wife comes in and she says, I never knew that that's how my father never wore the tefillin like that. And my father always used to wear the tefillin like this. Right? And then he said, I don't know, how do you know what your father wears? I guess he davened in the house. Okay. But the story with the fellow comes to the Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, I have a son. He's such a tzaddik. Why is such a tzaddik? His mamish going to be the next gadol hador. Why? He says all day long he likes to play like he's putting on tefillin. He's like, he puts us. So the Rebbe said to him, maybe you should stop davening in time. Not today in Corona, people daven in night, but that's in those days when people used to daven in minyanim and shuls and everything. Right? So that's tzakapanim. So now he has the tefillin and they're over here on the side of his brain like this. So his wife says, I never knew. She says, what? And he takes his little tefillin mirror and he looks and he puts it back. The halacha is, Mishnah Berurah brings down a simon chafei, you have to make a bracha. That's halacha. Because why? He didn't have das removal. He didn't have das of moving the tefillin. It fell off me'elav. Okay, but in tefillin, that's mefurish. In tefillin and talis, you have to have das in order to connect yourself to the original bracha. You have to have das to put back. If I take it off and I have das to put back, so then I'm connected still. But if it fell off and you don't have something positively das putting it back, so then, in other words, it's not that you need das removal in order to be masalik. Okay, that's the pashtus. By tefillin and tzitzis, it's clearly like that. That's no shot. And by Bishul, we would have said the same thing. By Chazar, we would have said the same thing. And the Maisa, who says that? The Avi Ezri. Rav Shach, Avi Ezri. That's what he says. He says that's a pashtus. That's a pashtus. Rav Shach, the good stuff he put in Avi Ezri. That's what he said about himself. His good stuff, It's like, you can imagine, Mamish, this is Idis to Idis. This is the Idis to Idis. It's studying the machlekes of Idis to Alma and this was his Idis the day. By us, this is Idis shebe Idis because Klape the Alma. This is Mamish Idis shebe Idis. But by him, the rest of his stuff was Zibaris. But this is the Idis of Rav Shach. So it's like Idis to Idis to Idis. So Rav Shach over here in Perek Beis, and Taka didn't write down where maybe. You see, I'm excited because we're about to talk about Rabbi Kiva Eger. I wrote here Beis Yud Gimel, but that doesn't sound right. Let's see. I have the big ones at home, the Rav Shachs. I hope it's the same one. Beis Tes. 1 second. No, it's Gimel Yud. It's Gimel Yud. So he writes like this. He writes, I just want to read you the line. It's a short shtickle. He says, Pashit, Tzarech Li'in, we'll see what he means. Pashit. Shekana Iker, listen to this. What's Pashit? DJ, what's Pashit? Rabbi Micheli, ready? What's Pashit? Pashit, Shekana Iker in Be'esa Netila Min Akira Hayala Hachzir as Mutter. Pashit that you have to have a positive das to bring it back to the Kira. Pashit, you have to have a positive das. It's Pashit. Ve'im ein daita la'achzir achakach harei kemoi shesham mitchila v'asroi. The borer, listen to Rav Shach. Borer afilu nafal me'elav. Son of Shach. Borer, that even if the cholent pot fell off on its own, what happened? Here you are, you're taking stuff off of the blech, and when you take it off, something gets knocked into chalang fallen off in there and falls on the floor. Okay? Rav Shach will tell you, in that case, that potato coco is wrapped in this little foil, say, fell on the floor. You want to know now, it's on the floor. Could I put it back? Okay, without the run. Don't be chacham. You're an einik of the Rashbi. You don't hold to the run. Okay? According to, are you allowed to put that potato cocoa back? It fell off on the floor by itself. Okay? Or better case, you didn't even, I got a case, okay? You didn't even know. And on Erev Shabbos, it's a great case. Erev Shabbos, you're putting your Masada, all the things on the blech, okay? And then when you're Masada, you don't realize something's scared. Sometimes one thing, potato cocoa fell off onto the counter. Yeah, I fell off onto the, or fell off. And you don't realize, you come Friday night, so you see you don't have the ran. I was thinking, you don't have the ran, so now you have to listen. Okay? You don't have the ran. So now there's the potato kugel, and she's on the floor. Okay? Or she fell onto a table, the fear of Nebenzel. Okay? So now you have the potato kugel, and she's on the floor. And now you want to know, can I take that potato kugel and put it back on? Says Rav Shach, borer. The most pashut thing in the world, that nafel me'elav, that this is called nafel me'elav, and you don't have a positive das lahachzir, you don't have a das which is bringing you back, says Rav Shach, this is pashut, that avada, you don't have the Tanai Chazara. I didn't have a positive das of removal. Doesn't matter, you need to have a positive das to put back. Just like we said by the talis, just like we said by the tefillin. Says Rav Shach, that's pashut ubarer. So now, go to all of our cases. The fire went out. So do you have a positive das putting you back? You don't have a positive das. Do you have a das that you removed it? You didn't have a das removal, it's true. But do you have a positive das putting you back onto some other fire? Of course not. So Mela says Rav Shach, in our case, I'm saying from Rav Shach, but he doesn't talk about this case specifically, he says in the concept. So therefore, in order to be called Eitel Achsir, you have to have positive das bringing you back to the fire, and that's Pashut Ubara. Says Rashach, and where does Rashach bring his raya from? In Simin Chesif Tezvav L'Gabe Talis. He says if a talis, if the talis fell on the floor, so do you have to make a new bracha? Yes, we'll see. There's other cheshbainis, maybe because you're wearing talis cotton, so maybe the minig is not there. But without that, you're that weird guy. He doesn't wear tzitzis. And he wears, but I'm just a talis, a weird guy. Right? He goes against the minig Yisrael. Okay, so he doesn't wear tzitzis. No. So now his talis falls on the floor. He has to make a new bracha. That weird guy has to make a new bracha. Okay, it says why? Because you have to have positive das. That's atif chadasha. So then you're putting it on the first time. Okay. So let me ask you a case now. Let's say you want to hear a case. So what happens? You tell your son, okay, or a guest, or a husband, who's also a guest. Right? So you tell him, go to the not a husband, because a husband might be a shtickle child, but you tell your son, or you tell a guest, why don't you do a mitzvah? I made all the food, she says. So don't you want to get a mitzvah? He says, go and bring the chicken soup. So he brings, what does he bring? Like we said yesterday, he brings by mistake the cholent. Takes the cholent and he puts it onto the living room table. Karka amiti. Okay, in my world we'll call that karka amiti. Puts it onto the living room table, and there's no, that's mamish karka. Okay, and it's not biyadai anymore, and it's all over. Okay, so now you open it up, voila. You see in there dead cows. You see in there murdered potatoes. Right? This is not chicken soup. This is cholent. Sean, quickly go and put it back on. He says, wait a minute. But I didn't have das to be machzeret. I didn't have das. Okay, the ran. I know you guys all know the ran, the most dangerous thing in the world. But you didn't have das. You didn't have das to be machzeret. So right away you're going to say, yeah, but I didn't have das to take it off. Why not? Because you're going to say, because ein adam oiser davar she'enai shaloi. You're going to say, ein adam oiser davar she'enai shaloi. You're going to say, what? I could remove it. Your das is a bottle dikkadah. Me, Mrs. The balabasta there, you can't, your das is going to, what does das have to do over here? And I don't have such das. So what will Rav Shach say to that? That's exactly what Rav Shach is coming to talk about. That's the case that Rav Shach is coming to talk about. And he fears us with these words. So he says, in Cain, afim acher natal min akira. So therefore, somebody else, that's why I didn't want to say a husband, because it could be he has rishus, klape the cholent, or whatever like that. But certainly a guest or something like that. So somebody else took off the cholent, and his das was to leave it off, right? He took off this piece of cholent, he took off this pot, and he planned on leaving it off. So what are you going to do? You're going to come and say, oh, your das is batal, because says Rav Shach, it's lakshin. It doesn't make sense. Believe positive das. So call ain't adam oiser davashin shalai can't help you over here, because ain't adam oiser davashin shalai can't make it that you have a positive das going back to the fire. The only thing, Bishlama, if you would learn, you ready for this? Bishlama, if you would learn that the lumdis was that I need das removal in order to have a problem. Das removal is what creates the problem. If I don't have das removal, then it's not a problem. Then I could start saying ain't adam oiser davashin shalai, because I could say, you're das, you had das removal. Nachon, but who are you? Eino the Moiser Davar She'eina Shaloi. Right? But now that we're saying that the lumdus is that I need a positive das to bring it back to the fire. Okay? So the Rabbi say, now it's checkmate because there's no positive das. Adkan is Rav Shach, and it's not better than Im Nafal Me'elov, says Rav Shach. If it would fall on the floor by itself, the case we spoke about, in that case, says Rav Shach, that's called not Taitel Achsor. So then, is it worse that somebody else took it off? Somebody else took it off. What's the difference if it fell on the floor? And what's the difference if somebody picked it up and took it off? So it's true that you don't have here a das to remove. But who cares? You also don't have a positive das to put it back on. Adkan is Rav Shach, and he says the word hupashit again, a second time he says hupashit, and in the middle he said bara. So it's pashit hubaru pashit. Okay? Good? Adkan. But what's Rav Shach coming to scream about? Well, it's Rav Shach, right? In his Rav Shach has a whole shtickle in the beginning of Avi Ezri about emunah and bitachon. Right in the beginning, it's a nice shtickle he has in you say this in Deis, a beautiful shtickle. You say that I think it was. You say that, and he talks about what's this whole mitzvah of emunah and bitachon. Like it's the most special thing in the world that there's an Eibush there. What are you, a schnitzel? Ich meine, schnitzel also chaps that. What are you talking? Emunah bitachon? There's a mitzvah. So he explains that no, Avadana explains it to Beis HaLevi, and he says it bothered him that there could be a mitzvah to tell a person to believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu. You have to be passionate and meshugah to not believe in the Hey Shafi. You go and look at a tree, look at a baby, look at yourself, right? Look at anything, and you see the Eibush there, and every single thing in the world you see the Eibush there. So it can't be there's a mitzvah to have a brain, to be moseichel thing. We could have heard not like that. We could have heard that the mitzvah was right. How do you say this? Don't be an idiot. Right? You could have heard like maybe the mitzvah is that don't make yourself stupid. Okay, you could have. Rav Shach is not makabel that, right? Rav Shach is not makabel that. So Rav Shach says, what's the mitzvah of emunah bitachon? Avad is the Eibishter and Avad is the Bashefter. Everything is the Eibishter, right? But then there's things that are difficult to understand. If there's an Eibishter, so why Tzadik V'Raloi, why Rosh V'Toivloi, if there's an Eibishter, which is the things that we can't understand. Why good things happen to bad people, maybe things like that. Things that don't make sense if the world of the Rebbeinu Shalom wants, okay. Even though you could understand that a little bit because there's an Olam Haba, but the things that taka are difficult to understand. So that's where the Munah starts. That's where Munah starts, okay. So the Rav Shach just told us in the beginning of a Sefer, I don't write the Sefer to say Pasha things. There's nothing here in the Sefer is Pasha. So why is he coming to tell me something which is Pasha to borrow Pasha that no one Sefer? Because he has over here from Rebbe Kiva Eger. Rebbe Kiva Eger says not like this. Everything you heard today in the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes, is not like Rebbe Kiva Eger. Why? And the Bir Lacha brings this Rebbe Kiva Eger in Dibbar Maskal Laniach. Rebbe Kiva Eger, and Rav Shach is coming to argue on Rebbe Kiva Eger. Okay, Rav Shach is coming to argue on Rebbe Kiva Eger. So what did Rabbi Kiva Eger say? Rabbi Kiva Eger declares, what's the halacha in the case I just described to you? What's the halacha if you tell the neighbor, you tell the guest, please take off the chalent, the neighbor takes off the chalent, or whatever, somebody comes to your chalent that night, he's angry at you, right? He takes off the chalent, and he takes it off, and he puts it down on the karka, right? He puts it on the karka. Now what are you going to do? I got you, right? What are you going to do now? So now, are we going to say, Ein adam oiser davar she'eina shalai? Are we going to say another oiser davar she'eina shalai? Okay, because I took off the chalent and I don't have das la'achzir. So Rabbi Kiva Eger says it depends on a very big machlekes rishonim of the din ein adam oiser davar she'eina shalai when you have two parts. There's a maisa and a machshava. The din of ein adam oiser davar shalai. We know that if a person takes an avela and throws it into your chicken soup, you're not going to say ein adam oiser davar she'eina shalai. Because that's totally in the maisa. You did something. You threw in the chicken soup. You put the chicken soup in there. You put the nevela inside, right? So eino the moiser davar she'eina shalai is totally in a machshava. Like if I take your tyrus and I'm a tamid, you can't say eino the moiser davar she'eina shalai. But sometimes there are things that are totally in a machshava. Machshava depends, like if I have a nichusa in certain things, I'm happy and Mamela makes it kilia kerem. I'm happy that these two things are growing together, whatever. Different things. That's where we say, Eino de moiser davar she'eina shalai, when it's totally in the machshava. Claire to Rabbi Kiva Eger, now this part is complicated. If you understand it, good. If not, it's also okay. It's not important, klape arsik so much. Rabbi Kiva Eger declares, what's the din of where you have something that has a two-parter to it? It has also a maisa and also a machshava. So Rabbi Kiva Eger brings it's a machlekes rishonim. Dik, it's Geschmack when you know Kol Tarkula. And it's Mamish, it's a Machlekes V'Shaynim. If we say on such a case, says Rabbi Kiva Eger, in our case, this guy wants to get you back. He's angry at you. He takes your chalent, he's like, and he takes it and he puts it onto the countertop. Gotcha, right? So do we say now, according to the Shitas, that it's tali, that as long as one of the parts is machshava, so then I can answer your chalent, and then your challenge is also because my machshava is chal, because I did a maisa plus a machshava. But according to the Shitas, that hold that ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai is only when it's purely 100% a machshava and nothing to do with a maisa. So then over here, and maybe I said it backwards. I said the wrong way. The other way. If you hold that ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai, it's the same idea. It doesn't matter so much comparison. But if you hold what? Karka is what? Karka itself is bad, a countertop. Let's say mita v'savsel. So if I take your chalent and I'm angry at you and I take the chalent and I put it on the countertop, says Rabbi Kiva Eger. So do I say, no, saif, he put it onto the mita v'savsel, which doesn't necessarily aser mita v'savsel, and therefore your machshava won't be enough? Or do I say that no, since taka, it's tali also in a maisa, so therefore maybe your machshava could be enough. Okay. That part, Rabbi say, is a bit complicated. Maybe I'll go into it after. But upon him, what do you see from Rabbi Kiva Eger? Okay, what do you see from Rabbi Kiva Eger? Rabbi Kiva Eger says that the sugya of ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai applies by our case of a chalent. Now listen closely what I just said. That means, what did Rabbi Kiva Eger just say? Rabbi Kiva Eger just said that, let's say on a Friday night, when you tell somebody go and take off the chalent, and it wasn't, it's a guest or whatever, it's not the husband. So now, when he takes off the chalent, and his das is that this is the chalent I'm taking off. So now it's going to be tali in the shaila of ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai. So then, there's it sad that if we hold that an adam could yes be oiser davar she'ein shalai in this case, so then this is sad to say that this chalent is going to be aser. But if you hold ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai, then this chalent can go back to the fire. Is Rabbi say, what did Rabbi Kiva Eger just say then? Rabbi say, this has nothing to do with the sugya of ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai. Hooray! Over here, we kept saying that we need positive das to put it back on the fire. Do we have positive das to put this chalent back onto the fire? A resounding no. So from today till tomorrow, you could say, ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai. Okay, we paskin, ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai. But I don't have a positive das putting this back onto the fire. I said, Bezai, what does it help me that ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai? And Rabbi Kiva Eger is mefurish that if you would hold ein adam, he paskins that way, that's why it's even an afkamina. If you would hold ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai in this case, says Rabbi Kiva Eger, you can put back, in our case, the chalent. And as again, go to the case we just spoke about. If the person by mistake, he's trying to get you, and he takes off the chalent, so now we're going to say on him, ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai, and you're going to take that chalent and put it back on the fire. Rav Shach is going to say, what? What are you talking? There's no positive das to put it back. This has nothing to do with ein adam oiser davar she'ein shalai. Sa'ar Chakira is a machlekes, Rabbi Kiva Eger and Rav Shach. Okay, before I go weiter, crystal clear? Moirdik, right? Moirdik in the felt. Yeah? So now, everybody say, what's the psak halacha? What's the psak halacha? Machlekes, Rabbi Kiva? No? DJ, what's the psak halacha? Machlekes, Rabbi Kiva Eger and Rav Shach. Come on. Rav Shach has Rabbi Kiva Eger open on the table and he's arguing. But the Biur Halacha brings Rabbi Kiva Eger. Okay? So now it's the machlekes Rabbi Kiva Eger against the Rabbi Kiva Eger and the Biur Halacha, and he's against who? Rav Shach. What's the psak halacha? Okay? So now let me read you. Rav Shach, what Rav Shach said about Rabbi Kiva Eger. And before you say, because I saw a sefer, and he has a whole shaila. It's a sefer written in Bnei Brak, but he has a whole shaila. What should we do halacha l'maisa? And Rabbi say, I think you all know, what do I think was Pashut Bisvara? Well, I thought that Pashut Bisvara was talking like Rav Shach. So I have Negias. Right? So I have Negias over here. So I want that Rav Shach should be right. But if I want to know who's the, because I saw this with my own eyes. I saw a sefer, it's unbelievable. It's a big, thick sefer, it's like this thick, right? And he has 3 pages discussing Taka, this Shaila, and Mamish, and bringing Grayas to Rav Shach and Maisa. And then he says, so the psak is like this. He ends like this, and therefore kamuvan. This is what he writes. He writes these words. I'm telling you, he writes these words. I didn't bring it in. I was so upset, so I brought this one instead. I had to bring a sefer. He writes kamuvan. It's move on. You don't even have to say it. It's moving bailiff, right? Kamuvan babsak k'moy moron. So I said moron. So moron means Rabbi Kiva Eiger, right? Right? Psak is kamuvan k'moy moron. Moron Rabbi Kiva Eiger, right? Moron, right? Or maybe moron means the bir halacha, right? And then he ends with the next two words, k'moy moron Rosh Hashiva. So he said maybe Rabbi Kiva Eiger is Rosh Hashiva. Rabbi Kiva Eiger is Rosh Hashiva, right? Rabbi Kiva Eiger is Rosh Hashiva. Yeah, so maybe it means that. And that's Kemaran, Rosh Hashiva, Reb, Elazar, Menachem Man, Shach, Zecher, Tzadik Levracha. So he says. So he says that the psak is like Rabbi Kiva, is like Rav Shach, not like Rabbi Kiva Eiger, right? So now let's see what Reb Shach holds about Rabbi Kiva Eiger before we say such unintelligent statements, right? Let's see. So here, and I have this sefer, and this sefer over here is what Rav Shach says all the things about Rabbi Kiva Eiger. It's not, he has a different about all the Gedolim, right? But he has a whole chapter here about Rabbi Kiva Eiger. So he says like this. He says, what, which page? 30, page 30. So he says, Sach Maran Shlita. This is mamish, but you see how much he held to Rabbi Kiva Eiger. He says, when the Truvas Rabbi Kiva Eiger came out, they brought the Truvas Rabbi Kiva Eiger. Can I digress or no? I digress? Is everybody okay with the bit of the digression? No, see? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so when the Truvas Rabbi Kiva Eiger, wait, the guy's watching on TV, Rabbi Danziger? Yeah, I could digress for a moment? I think so. Okay. So when the Truvas Rabbi Kiva Eiger came out, they brought it to Chaim Volozhiner. So Reb Chaim said, no, the etzim Truvas, I could also write. Chaim Volozhiner was very big, Rabbi said. The etzim Truvas, when I would see the Truvas Rabbi Kiva Eiger, I would say, the etzim numbers on the page I can't write. Right? But Rav Chaim Volozhiner writes, I would be able to write these tshuvas also. So what's the spyless of Rabbi Kiva Eiger? Aval to write a tshuva like this on the spot and to answer on the spot. How many times does it say in Rabbi Kiva Eiger, Esmal higiani sheilasa, your shaila came to me yesterday. He says, me, Rav Chaim Volozhiner, I'd have to think about these for weeks and weeks. Right? I could answer, but it would take me weeks and weeks. Then he goes on and he says, Rabbi Kiva Eiger, when Rav Shach would talk about Rabbi Kiva Eiger, Baruch Nizgava, he would talk about him with the greatest of like a niskav, like niskava. Kal Tayrasa ke'echad min harishonim. So Rabbi Kiva Eiger is like one of the rishonim. When in Shiur of Mar Beladim Mitoiches Batlas, he would always talk about with his Batlas to Rabbi Kiva Eiger, and he would say words like this: he's meirim kishemesh bizrichasa. It's like the sun when it shines in its greatest. Right? Just like a person would have to go outside and say, it's the sun outside when the sun is shining. That's Keinu the Ish Kamoini. Like a person like me in a door, Yasmi the Yasmi, Shein Banu V'loi Klum. That we have nothing. Laharbas B'tvarim al Echad Gedoyle Achrayim. To talk about the greatness of one of the Achrayim from a few dairas back, become a dairas. Asher Ada Yoim, until today, Niskar Kol Davar Kadsha Yimimal Pumayim, that every word that came out of Rabbi Kiva Eiger's mouth filled the mouths of Rabbanim, V'Talmidei, and B'Teiros Emes. Who knew? Who am I talking about? Hagoyin, Rabbi Kiva Eiger, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh, something, Chayoy Lamav, Asher Mimeimav, ... That means there was a lot more that went on now. Asher Mimeimav Anu Shaisim, ... B'Kol Miktzayis HaTorah, in every chelik of the Torah, the cold Dvarav, everything that Rabbi Kiva Eiger says, Heim Smeichim K'Nisinasa Misinai. They make us happy like when we got it from Sinai. They make us happy like the day we got the Torah from Sinai. Do you remember how happy we were when we got the Torah at Sinai? You know how happy we were when we got the Torah at Sinai? It was the happiest moment in the whole Bria. And Rabbi Kiva Eiger, every word that he says is like that happiness. The das and the svaras of Rabbi Kiva Eiger are machriya etzleinu, by us. Ke'echad min harishonim. Ubevadei yesh levayir hasber kol dvar shiyatzim mitachas yada. Memela, we have to explain every drop of ink that comes out of the pen of Rabbi Kiva Eiger. Can I digress a little more? Because what do you say, Rabbi Tracy? What do you say? No? Does everybody let me do it from South Africa? You let me also? Yeah, I think so. No, I can't. I can't hold back. Right? He talks about. He says. Rabbi Kiva Eiger. Rabbi Kiva Eiger. He brings down a tshuva. This is one of Rav Shach's favorite tshuvas, Rabbi Kiva Eiger. where you see the anivus of Rabbi Kiva Eger, Klappis is spotless to the base mayor. I was referring to this the other day, if you remember, he mentioned something. He says, the base mayor told Rabbi Kiva Eger, I don't want to say this heter, but if you want to, so then it's on you. You're the one that has to take the achrayus for this heter. That was what the base mayor wrote to Rabbi Kiva Eger. So Rabbi Kiva Eger writes back like this. He says, She'ein shum tzad lahatir. L'maisa, there's no other side of the world to be makel zulos beter didi, unless you say like my heter. Okay, but only im yaskim kvaydai hagain, right? That v'loy kasher kasav chavivi, and not like my beloved one, the base mayor wrote that the ikar het will be a maidas yedidi legaydel an benusay, because of your great anivus daima leyitush kamayni. You think that you're like I can't say it. You think you're like a flea. I can't even say it. Like me. You think you're like a flea like me. Right? And you're mamish like this groise ox. But I know the truth about myself, says Rabbi Kiva Eger. Like Rabbi Kiva said about himself, like Rabbi Kiva in Shas. And not even like a roya bakar. He says, so how do I have a right to even dan such a shaila and to paskin such a shaila? Eineni kedai. I'm not kedai. I feel that I should come to give you an eighth of what the psak is, but I have no choice but to be marba your rotzen. I had to tell you what I thought. So in yaskin kvoidai, then you could be makel. But if not, then no way, because I'm like, what am I like this? Right? And look how Rabbi Kiva Eger used to talk. Rabbi Kiva Eger used to learn the Gemara, the Mishnah and Beya. He would say, Beya shenol de biyantiv, Beita shenol de biyantiv, Beishamai oimrim, Rotzin Hashem shetoichel. That's how Rabbi Kiva Eger learned the Mishnah. Yeah? Beis Hillel oimrim, we say Beis Hillel oimrim loy toichel, right? He says Beis Hillel oimrim, Rotzin Hashem sheloi toichel. Rabbi Kiva Eger. Okay. Now there's a lot of other stories over here. All right, a lot of other stories, and the stories. But there's just one, I just can't. The stories about Rabbi Kiva Eger, and there's mamish, some of them I've said in the past, and some of them, like the time that Rabbi Kiva Eger and the Nesivos were together in a room. They were together in a room, and somebody came and he wanted to see, Rabbi Kiva Eger and the Nesivos. So the Rabbi Kiva Eger was there, so he saw the person, he said to him, what do you want? You have a shaila? You have a shaila? So he said, no, he doesn't have a shaila, he just wants to see. So I said, he said, the Nesivos will be back in a minute. I just wanted to see, right? So the Nesivos will be back in a minute. Yeah. So listen to this. I'll say one more story. Even though he goes on to say, reading Rabbi Kiva Eger's, that's how Reb Shach, what was Reb Shach's Muster Seder? He would read Shuvas Rabbi Kiva Eger's. So that's what he writes here. Because the nivus of Rabbi Kiva Eger, when he knew Kol HaTorah Kula. So he says, one time his grandson, Mordechai Yosef. Now I called this is his great-grandson, and you'll see in a moment, I called this Mordechai Yosef's father today to ask him a question, to ask his shver, and to ask the question where we're going to talk about Rav Meir Tzvi Bergman. Right? So he said like this. But first, a story about this grandchild, who's older than all of us now. So he great-grandchild. He said he used to come and learn Rosh Hashanah on Friday, and one time on Friday he didn't come. So Shach said, where were you? So on Shabbos he came. So he said, where were you? So he said, well, my bar mitzvah was last week, and I went to halachti lechanut svarim. I went to the svarim store. Why'd you go to the svarim store? Because lahachliv svarim, I got doubles for my bar mitzvah. I got doubles for my bar mitzvah. So I went to trade, like a normal thing, like a bar mitzvah boy does, right? So he said, which svarim? I can't, you have to read it. Somebody else has to read it. I can't read it. Oh no. So he answered, I can't. Shuvas Rabbi Kiva Eger. You wanted to return. Shuvas Rabbi Kiva Eger. So Rashach, oi. Shuvas Rabbi Kiva Eger. Ein machlifin. You don't change Rabbi Kiva Eger. He said, Zayda. Aval Saba. Kibalti. Tisha Rabbi Kiva Eger. That's what he says. He said, you got 9 Rabbi Kiva Egers. What do you want from me? So Rashach screamed at him, nah, you foolish one. Why don't you ask questions before you do things? Why don't you ask questions before you do things? You never, and you just do things. You make achlotas and decisions without asking Gedolei Torah. Rashach started screaming at this little bar mitzvah angle. Right? Make decisions like this. You never trade Rabbi Kiva Eger. Hare Kasav Mefurish in the Gemara Megillah Chav Zayinim and Aleph. Ein Machlif in Sefer Torah. Rabbi Kiva Eger. Rabbi Kiva Eger. So now let's see. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What were you laughing at? What do you think? What do you think would happen if we would ask Rav Shach this shaila? Who's the psak halacha like? Me or Rabbi Kiva Eger? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Who says Rabbi Kiva Eger? Who's Rabbi Kiva Eger? Who says Rav Shach? Who says Shach? So Maisa, this sefer writes it, and he writes also over there that he was miyayitz also. He writes with other. He writes there like the Chatzor of Rav Shach, like people that were close to Rav Shach. So I sent the Shaila today to Meir Tzvi Bergman. The truth is, in the past, I also myself, I had a different place where I asked this Shaila, but today it bothered me so much that I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. Who did last time? Remember what we did last time? Yeah, what? No. Last time I just was mistamech on the fact that there was a story. The story was that they came to Rav Shach with this type of a story. The story was that Taka Bachrim took off the chalent and they had no rishus. There's Bachrim in yeshiva, let's say, whatever yeshiva was, and they took off the chalent and they didn't have rishus and they didn't have to ask to put it back because they didn't know from Milchus or whatever, and they found the chalent on the countertop. Okay, so we know the Ran or whatever. So they went to Rav Shach, this was like the chance. They asked Rav Shach, no, Maisa, we can put back the challenge. So the answer is no, right? The answer is no. So Rav Shach said, of course, we can put back the challenge. What's the shaila? So they said, no, because Rav Shach, no, but Rabbi Kiva Eger is mekel. Rabbi Kiva Eger is mekel. So yeah, but Rav Shach writes against him. What? That's what people think? Rav Shach started screaming, that's what people think. That's what people think. That's what people think. That I wrote in a sefer, and I have a kasha on Rabbi Kiva Eger, but you write Pashut, Ubar, Pashut. Since Pashut, Ubar, Pashut, then I'm wrong. What are you talking about? Rabbi Kiva Eger says not like me. That was the story I heard. That's what Rabbi Jeff written down there. No, so I asked I didn't get to, obviously, to Meir Tzvi Bergman, Salti, but I asked I guess this is the grandson now of Rav Shach, right? I asked him, Maisa, Rabbeinu, that I told him the sefer he writes that the psak is like Rav Shach, but I know a story not like that, right? So tell me, no, Avada the psak is not, but he's going to Mavar. So he's Mavar. I think he's Mavar with his father. He didn't tell me that, but he was Mavar. So Maisa like this. So the psak is like Rabbi Kiva Eger. Psak like Rabbi Kiva Eger? That we know. Somebody came to Rav Shach. This is the story he told me. I think he told it from Meir Tzvi Bergman. I don't take responsibility for that. But he came back and told me, somebody came, I guess it was probably this similar type of a story. So somebody took off the challenge business. The way he said it was a different story, right? The way he said it was al derech what we were speaking about. That's why that story was in my head. That they told the guest to take it off guard. He said it was like a husband, whatever. But let's say, because that would be the Shiloh shtickle already, because maybe he's the balabas on the challenge. So they told the guest to go and take off the challenge. And the guest took the chicken soup, and the guest took off the challenge. Okay, so now there it is. It's in the hand. So they came to Rav Shach. They asked the Shiloh. Okay, so we know the answer already. You don't have to go and knock on the Gadlat door's door because you always have the Ran anyways. Okay, but they Lamaisa, this is their chance to find out. Rav Shach, this is Mamish Rav Shach and Avi Yezri. Everybody knows it, right? So they went to Rav Shach and they said, well, Maisa, we can't put back the challenge, right? Okay, and they asked him, Mamish Bezel Lashon. So maybe because the Ran, even though the minig is lahakal on the Ran, but they asked Rav Shach, but maybe Taka, listen to this. Maybe just like for the covet of Rav Shach, right? To show that the halacha is taka, not like Rabbi Kiva Eger. That's what they asked Rav Shach. That the halacha is not like Rabbi Kiva Eger, So we'll bedafka eat the cholent on Friday night. Yeah. What do you think? Right? Yeah. So Rav Shach, what Rav Shach did? Rav Shach was the one by the door. Rav Shach says, oi. Sefer halacha. Sefer halacha. Avi Yezri, Sefer halacha. Sefer halacha. Rabbi Kiva Eger. And then Rav Shach closed the door. So let's see. What do you think Rav Shach meant? What do you think he meant? He meant like this, right? You have to say in the niggin, right? Oi, Avi Yezri. It's a Sefer halacha. Right? It's a Sefer. That's how they're going to learn it up. It's a Sefer halacha, right? Rabbi Kiva Eger. So I don't think that Kiva Eger. I think this is what Rav Shach probably was really saying. We probably said it was like this. Oi, it stems with the other oi. Right? You never return Rabbi Kiva Eger's. Right? Oi, Shach, Yezri, Sefer halacha. Rabbi Kiva Eger. Close the door. Okay? So the Psak halacha is like Rabbi Kiva Eger. Okay? Now, the Maisa, Rabbi Kiva Eger is a Pella. Maisa, Rabbi Kiva Eger is a Pella. No? Right, Danziger, I had to digress. No, Rabbi Silverman, I had to digress. For the cover of Rabbi Kiva Eger. No, I had no choice. Right? I had no prayer. But the Meister Rabbi Kiva Eger is a Pella. He's Mamash a Pella. Rabbi Kiva Eger is a Pella. He's not a Pella. Yeah. So now we start a whole new svara because Rabbi Kiva Eger is such a big Pella that it can't be. It can't be. And like I said before, the Pashtus is certainly not like that, right? The Pashtus is so maybe you could fathom a new svara. And this svara, I saw in two places. One is the Shvus Yitzchak brings it down from Rav Yashiv, this type of a svara. It was in the 164th page. And one is in the Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa in Aleph Samach Tes. I think I mean Ha'ara Samach Tes. And I must admit, and please be Michael me, I think I mean the old Shmir Shabbos is, I don't know what I wrote over here. But the new svara, that's what I want to clear, new svara. We'll start the svara now. It's getting late. I digressed a bit too much, even I'll admit. I got too carried away because of Rabbi Kiva Eger. But we need to know these things about Rabbi Kiva Eger. Right? What could you do? So the Maisa, there's a new svara that maybe you could say over here. Maybe Avada, Rabbi Kiva Eger agrees that Avada you need positive das to return. And that is the pashtus, like Rabbi Kiva Eger, like Rav Shach said, pashit, bar, and whatever. But maybe there's a new svara over here. Maybe when I put food onto a fire on Erev Shabbos, licked in that mice of putting the food on the fire is my das kivyachol stays there with the pot. Kivyachol. What does it mean that I put my food on a fire? I'm having das that I want it to be on a fire, right? So maybe that's should I give you a mashal amad davar daina? Mashal amad davar, give me a mashal? Yeah, Jerry? Very good. Mashal amad davar daina. He doesn't say this mashal for this. So I'm stealing from them, and let's say now it's my own spark because they say it a little differently. I don't mean to take the covet. I mean fakir, to take if I'm making a mistake, right? But the Maisa, let's like Rabbi Sher says. Rabbi Sher says we have Kain such a svara, right? When my tefillin, I'm wearing my tefillin during davening, and my tefillin go out of place a little bit, right? So now what's the loch of my tefillin go out of place while I'm davening? So that's Mefurish in the Mishnah Berurah. Not everybody agrees to this. Chayyim argues on this, but Mishnah brings, I think, for who Ashla, he brings this, like Yehuda, that's like maybe all of them. He brings over there that if you have a tefillin that goes a little bit out of place, okay? So then the halacha is, but it's during davening. So since during davening, you're never mesiach das. So when I put my das in the beginning, it's as if my das extends. Putting on tefillin at the beginning of davening is a ma'isa of, I want my tefillin there, kol rega v'rega, unless I mefurish, take it off. Like that's the extent of the das. Okay. Now, what would happen if the marshal go back to talis, right? If the talis fell off mamish, no. So then you're not on the place of the fire. You might not be able to have such a svara. If the talis fell off mamish, we still would maybe, we'll see in a minute how we can apply Rav Shach. If the talis fell off, so that's before we get to nafkaminas, right? So maybe this is all that Rav Kiva Eger meant. This is what Rav Yashiv says. Maybe this is all that Rabbi Kiva Eger meant. Rabbi Kiva Eger meant like this. The M is I have my das, and I want my das to continue until I take it off, until I willingly take it off. Okay? As I say, now, let's say someone takes it off against my will. Okay? So now there's this snagdus in a fight of das, because my das is there. Because placing on food onto the fire, Erev Shabbos, is considered, we'll see in a minute, there could be still enough nafkamina. Don't think it's just, Chakira is the hat on top of the bacher, is the bacher under the hat. It'll be a tremendous nafkamina. But now I have two dasim that are fighting. I have a das of this person that he wants his cholent on a fire. And I have this person's das who's saying, I want the cholent off. So now we can say like this. Avada Rabbi Kiva Eger agrees you need a positive das, but you have a positive das. I'll show you nafkamina in a moment. But says Rabbi Kiva Eger. So now, if another moiser davar she'ein shaloi would apply over here, so then we would say that your das will be goiver, and your das, the original das, will be able to knock out the new das of this person, of this hoodlum taking off the cholent. If you learn that the pshat is Adam yes oiser davar she'ein shaloi, so then his das can knock out the previous das. If you hold another moiser davar she'ein shaloi, so then my das is going to win. My das of the das which is originally there when I put it into the cholent that I wanted to remain there, so then my das wins. But if you hold Adam oiser davar she'ein shaloi, so then my das has the ability to knock out and cancel your das. But everyone agrees that you need a positive das. The only question is that maybe placing there is considered a positive das. Now, watch. What could be the nafkamina? What could be the nafkamina then? Because everybody's agreeing, because we always have that original das. Right? Give me a nafkamina. No, anyone? No? What? Sorry, no, what? No, so let's. So that way, let's go like this. The cholent falls off the fire. The cholent falls off the fire and the cholent is on the floor. What? Okay, how about this? The fire goes off. What? So we have to work out enough community then. 1 second. If the fire went off, that's a tough one. If the fire went off. Shlomo Zalman says, even if the fire went off, the das is there. So where's there ever going to be a case that the das isn't there? Anybody have a case? What? Oh my goodness, what happened? It's over? Oh my goodness, it's an hour. What happened? We didn't learn a word. What? Because of the digression? The mom shouldn't learn a word. It's over. Okay, so we'll have to continue tomorrow. Okay, it's over. What happened? What? It never happened. History is here. No?